We're back on the Real News Radio with Farron and Brian. Judge Napolitano, if you're listening, if you called in, feel free to call in at the number 1-866-986-6397. We'd love to have you on. I just had received a phone call on myself. So if you'd like to call in, make some comments today, love to have you join us. So we're going to go ahead and continue with the news. Brian, go ahead.
Dominate. Dominate the media for more than a week and push vastly more important events into the shadows. Obama and Congress plan to hand the entire U.S. economy over to an evil cartel of private banksters and inbred elitists, thus creating a dictatorship not answerable to the people. Meanwhile, the corporate media has gathered in a feeding frenzy over the death of a mentally disturbed music icon. It is no longer news that the Fed will soon have power to seize any company, from the corner hot dog stand to a once mighty automotive corporation. Farrah Fawcett's death by cancer is more important than the fact the government will soon usher in a form of corporatism, what Mussolini called fascism, of a magnitude and sophistication never before witnessed. Earlier in the week, Representative Ron economic collapse, and yet this does not even make a ripple in the corporate media news cycle. Globalist Brent Scowcroft amidst the CIA and Pentagon are busy at work undermining the government of Iran, and yet the media focuses on what appears to be the staged murder of a young woman in Tehran and does not bother to mention her death as obviously part of the overall diabolical scheme to meddle in Iran's affairs and prepare for a shock and awe campaign to rival the one unleashed in Iraq, with horrific results of more than 1 million dead people. Evidence abounds that the World Health Organization, the United Nations, Big Pharma, and governments around the world, at the behest of international bankers, are planning to unleash a bioweapon attack in the guise of a flu pandemic. Journalist Jane Burgermeister, as we had just reported in our last segment, has presented compelling evidence of this plot, including the declaration of martial law and mandatory toxic vaccinations, and yet the corporate media is silent. The documented existence of FEMA detention camps and mass grave sites for this engineered pandemic are ignored by corporate media, with the exception of a lame hit piece conducted by government disinfo operative Glenn Beck and his sidekick from the paragon of yellow journalism, Hearst Publishing. There are government encroachments aimed at liberty on all fronts: water rights, CPS snatching children across the country, numerous laws proposed to limit and diminish, if not eliminate, gun rights, and yet the corporate media focuses exclusively on the death of celebrities. In 200 BC, the Roman poet Juvenal wrote about the lamentable fact political involvement and their duties for two things: bread and circuses. Our rulers have yet to hand out bread, but they've surely engineered and allured electronic circuses and grand distractions. In doing so, they are leading the masses down the path to complete enslavement.
We are seeing them justify all of this control grid technology. They are eavesdropping on us. We are having a total encroachment by the government to any resemblance of privacy. And while we were talking about Glenn Beck, I know these Tea Party events as the 9/12 movement, and we're using it for our protest. We're kind of riding the coattails because people are getting involved. We can give out our DVDs. But long before we get to 9/12, why don't we finish 9/11? And to finish 9/11, we need an investigation that ends with some prosecutions, that ends with some executions. And I'm not talking about it someone 3,000 miles away either I'm talking about up in the District of Criminals, Washington, D.C., that had to be involved in that event. Anyone that looks at it will see that we're telling the truth. We're going to, in our next segment, we're going to go to the phone. So I want to give out that phone number now. 1-866-986-6397. Don't call till we go to the break. After the break, come back. We want to give you a forum to comment on any of the things we've reported today, because this is a forum for the listeners. We've got about 3 or 4 minutes left. Go ahead, Brian.
Well, this is also reminiscent of what happened in 2003 when Michael Jackson was arrested. At the same day, we also had 100,000 protesters in Trafalgar Square in London protesting the bombings in Iraq. Operation Iron Hammer was being conducted at the time. The civilian population of Iraq was getting decimated. And meanwhile, we have the entire corporate, mainstream, elitist media concentrating on Michael Jackson arriving in the Santa Barbara airport, being arrested. I mean, that was the dominant news story that day. And down here, there's a BBC article at the time. There was actually 200,000 potential demonstrators in the streets of London protesting the actions being carried out in Iraq at the time. Yet the media was dominated by the arrest of Michael Jackson.
You know, that brings me to a thought that someone had mentioned to me, actually, Bill, that listens to the broadcast, calls in sometimes. Where is the anti-war movement now? Since Barack Obama's took over, Sheen, what was her first name? Sheen, I think she's running for Congress or something now. She was
Cindy Sheehan.
Cindy Sheehan. The whole anti-war movement has just kind of faded away since Barack Obama's came into office. Of course, he campaigned he was going to end the war on the first day, then 16 months, then 23 months. Now they don't even talk about it. But he can't get us out of the war because people more powerful than him got us into it, and the war just continues as planned. And it looks like using any opportunity they can to get us into other countries, such as Iran, using these demonstrations that they need our help. Which, you know, the last thing they want is for us to do to them what we've done to Iraq. The very last thing they want. But of course, our media paints it that way. But we're coming up on a break. After the break, we'd like to take your phone calls. 1-866-986-6397, LibertyNewsRadio.com. It's a great source of information. They do a really good job putting the news that the mainstream press doesn't cover, so I urge everyone to go to that. Of course, we're streaming there at LibertyNewsRadio.com. And again, next Saturday, July the 4th, there's going to be protests all over the different cities. April 15th, there were 2,200. We'll be giving away Rock Creek Free Press, a variety of DVDs, information, and the public will have a chance to speak. Everyone that shows up at ours here.
I'm going to be bringing copies of the Declaration of Independence and Constitution. I urge everyone to read them if you haven't.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of people.
Be aware of your rights, people, because they're evaporating fast.
They're evaporating quickly. And again, if you are listening during Napolitano had called on my cell phone, feel free to call in during this next break. We'd love to have you on in the next segment, and this is a forum for the listeners. That's why we do the broadcast, so you can voice your opinions with what's going on in the world today with regards to our government, which with what we have seen this past week with the cap and trade bill, what's happening with the hate crimes bill, people that have not been involved in the government, it's high time that you do so. And any of the clips that we play for you is on our website, therealnewsradio.com. So I'm going to give out the phone number again, 1-866-986-6397, and something we had reported on, and we'll get it in while we got a few minutes. 33 babies exposed to swine flu in North Carolina, still being cared for under quarantine in a hospital in Greensboro. We'll be back.